Hello, and welcome back to Coin Lady channel. And here's the kind of headline that makes your day. Fox is the source for this. Republicans in the House have introduced legislation to oust SEC Chair Gary Gensler and reorganize the commission. So, speaking as someone who has been involved in crypto since the latter half of 2017, I can say that I have what I consider to be significant holdings. I can't express how much I appreciate the efforts to get rid of Kim Jong Gensler after suffering through the ridiculous SEC versus Ripple case for the past 2.5 years. I have no words to express how much that means to me. That being said, I am a realist, and I have some terrible news to share with you at the opening of the film, but I promise to explain my reasoning later on in the video. However, the likelihood of passing this measure is close to zero. I have no doubt that the sponsors of this legislation are aware of this. Of course, one may simply shrug and call it political theater. I've heard it argued that claim is just political theater. What's the point? Why? Let me explain why. Whether we like it or not, this is how politics operates. To begin with. And yet, consider this. The public's judgment counts for something. And so, if this aids in spreading the word and there is genuine pushback here, even if it's not something that's going to pass, spreading the word, and as people learn over time what is happening, and as more and more people jump into crypto, they will understand that the SEC doesn't have their best interests in mind. The word is getting out. And if you don't think that has any worth, I can help you with that, son. Obviously, that's helpful. After that, what will occur? These, elected officials are responsible to the people who voted for them. They are voted out of office if the needs of the people they represent change over time and their policies no longer reflect those needs. Obviously, it's important to consider all of these factors. Certainly, circumstances can shift. It's not entirely upsetting. I'm only pointing out that the current state of this measure gives it exactly zero chances of becoming law. But I still think it's worthwhile, and I disagree with those who dismiss it as empty showmanship. If you want to call it theater, then that's what politics is, and that's great by me. If that's the case, I couldn't care less. But if you're arguing that it's inappropriate to do so here, I strongly disagree. But there is something I need to clarify before we go any further. I come from no financial or legal background. You shouldn't buy or sell anything based on what I say or write because I am not a legal or financial advisor. Just a hobbyist here that occasionally posts films to YouTube on various crypto-related topics. I'll explain what this is all about and why it's not going to happen. However, it bears repeating that its utility remains. I'm still happy that this is taking place. This is what the piece says. Representative Warren Davidson, Republican Ohio, and House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican Minnesota, introduced the SEC Stabilization Act, which would reorganize the Securities and Exchange Commission and force out current Chairman Gary Gensler. The GOP legislators argue that the present SEC framework has enabled a long string of abuses by Gensler. Davidson argued that the United States financial markets needed protection from a dictatorial chairman like the current one. That's why I'm proposing legislation to curb the pervasive misuse of authority and provide long-term market-beneficial security. We need serious change, and Gary Gensler must resign as SEC head. And by the way, I'll add that despite having said some problematic, suspicious things concerning XRP in the past, Warren Davidson has since been silent on the matter. Whip of the House Majority Minnesota Republican, Tom Emmer. Prior to the SEC's lawsuit against Ripple, he made the claim that XRP is not a securities. To be clear, he is on the side of the XRP community on this issue, which is excellent. This is the next part of the piece, and Emmer is speaking now. Emmer stated in the release that American investors and industry need transparent and consistent regulation, not political games. By instituting common-sense reforms, the SEC Stabilization Act will make sure that the agency puts the needs of the investors it is tasked to safeguard ahead of the whims of its reckless chair. Thank you so much for leading the charge to bring sanity back to the SEC, Representative Davidson. And with that, I will finish my quoting of Emmer. We are still at peace. The legislation proposed by Davidson and Emmer would remove SEC Chair Gensler and reorganize the commission to shift power away from the chair and towards the other commissioners. Increase the number of commissioners from 5 to 6, and establish the role of executive director to manage day-to-day operations. In addition, I have a graph. Here it is, all right. I have a graph to help. Warren Davidson tweets about it. The proposed new building would be on the right, and the existing one would be on the left. There are currently 5 votes, with multiple commissioners and the chair counting as the 5th acting commissioner, even though the SEC chair is technically in charge of the SEC. This system works because 5 is an odd number, eliminating the need for a tiebreaker in the event of a vote. So, the plan is to get rid of Gary Gensler and appoint another commissioner rather than having an SEC chair or a vote on any of this. There would be 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans on the commission, as stated in Article 2. Okay, so that's the plan. There is also an executive director who ostensibly acts as their supervisor, yet, in this diagram, the executive director is placed at the very bottom. So far as I can tell, it is unclear which executive director would serve as the deciding vote in the event of a tie. Because deadlock can occur with an even number of commissioners. And that's just a ridiculously foolish idea. If there were a deadlock, the executive director would have to decide. Okay, well, the piece goes on. Commissioners would be subject to staggered 6-year terms and would retain rulemaking, investigation, and enforcement authority. In addition to instituting a framework analogous to that of the Federal Elections Commission, the SEC Stabilization Act would also ensure that no political party holds more than a 3-2 majority on the commission. The SEC has been silent on the matter. Well, I guess it makes me the odd one out. They said no, as expected. So, why don't we just expect this to end? How come this doesn't stand a chance right now? Let's dive into that, then. The following is Attorney Deaton's commentary. He started off by saying it doesn't have much of a chance of passing, but it does send the proper message. Gary Gensler is committed to maintaining the status quo, working to ensure that the current banking system remains in control. Whether or not this measure passes, I and many others agree that he doesn't have long to live. Eleanor, a business reporter at Fox News, was also asked the following. Hello, Eleanor. Do we need congressional permission for this act? If that's the case, how long does it often take? Thanks. And Eleanor did reply, writing that it would require House and Senate approval, which would call for Democratic votes. Now is a good time to reflect on Democrats, as she does in her own tweet. However, the present administration is anti-crypto from the top down. So, your political beliefs are irrelevant to me. It's quite acceptable to hold leftist political views. I'm not interested in discussing such nonsense on this program. Only when it directly affects Bitcoin or the financial sector will I discuss politics. If that's how you want to vote, then cast your ballot accordingly. You should realize that your actions are counterproductive to your financial well-being in the crypto space. You should know that. Eleanor continues by saying the Democrat leadership backs Gensler and feels the SEC is doing a wonderful job, as seen by the leaked key points memo from the crypto hearing a few weeks ago. Listen up, I've stated this before. I'm not here to argue over a single subject, but in all honesty, I've never cared more about where politicians stand on crypto than I do right now. There is a whole political party that is actively working against my financial interests, and I know there is a lot at stake for my financial security as a result. This is the way things are. And I'm not suggesting that applies to each and every member of the Democratic Party. Some Republicans share the opposition of these Democrats. Totally get it. Worse for crypto than Trump's administration. Hold my beer, I thought things couldn't get any worse, and here come Biden and Gensler to make it so. I mean, it's not like I didn't think it was possible. The fact that we couldn't predict the future was the main factor. Not that I seriously thought either Biden or Gensler could have improved matters. However, Eleanor adds that, since the United States president selected Gensler and has veto power, the document would also need to be signed by the president. I'm afraid you guys are right. Therefore, there is not enough support, and there never was, because the Democrats are currently on the side of Gensler. I am fully aware of how repulsive and icky this is. That's the case, and I find it just as repulsive as you do. And even if it did pass, which it won't, the president would veto it since he nominated Gensler. Oh, yeah, he thinks I made a terrible mistake. Put an end to working with this Gensler person. Not at all likely to occur. Here, on the official website of the Senate, is an explanation of how the veto works. I'll elaborate on the highlighted section. This is the degree to which we face an uphill battle, just to be clear. There is literally 0% likelihood of this happening, I'm telling you. However, I am not arguing that we should stop trying. We can't stop discussing it. It gets the word out that Gary Gensler is terrible. Awful. Furthermore, it influences the general public's perspective. Incredible, incredible, incredible. To sum up, the veto is the president's ability to stop a bill or joint resolution from becoming law by refusing to sign it, as described on the United States Senate website. Again, a law passed by Congress must be signed by the president within 10 days, not counting Sundays. In the case of a standard veto, the president sends the bill back to the chamber from which it was originally passed along with a message outlining his reasons for vetoing it. Only a vote of 2/3 of both the Senate and the House of Representatives will be sufficient to override this veto. The bill would become law despite the president's opposition if this happened. There you have it. Technically, you still have the option of voting on the measure after it has been vetoed if it is sent back to the House. What you're talking about would require a 2/3 majority vote in both the Senate and the House, assuming it got that far. The numbers just don't add up, people. This is not going to happen. It's not going to work out that way. Kim Jong Gensler is one of the worst people in the world, therefore I'm glad to see something like this exists. What a quote-unquote vile human being. No, I don't give out financial advice. Nothing I say or write should be used as a basis for making financial decisions. Please like and subscribe my channel. See you in the next video. Bye.